I want us to talk about autism and what causes autism. So this is a topic that a lot of us, even healthcare professionals and a lot of people in society are concerned about, because it appears to be that there is actually an increase in the occurrence of autism. Some people say that autism has always existed, but that it was not diagnosed enough, that we're just not paying attention to it. People say that there's always been people who were not, particularly like many other people in society, that people with autism have always existed, people with um, you know, neurological differences, behavioral differences have always existed in society, that we're just beginning to diagnose autism more and we're beginning to understand what autism spectrum disorder actually is. And that's why it appears that there is an apparent increase in the diagnosis of autism. Is that the case, or is there an actual increase in the prevalence or occurrence of autism? I want to share my own take. I'll share what is popularly believed, and then I'll actually talk about what I personally believe from my observation and from my intellectual, thought processes. So, by way of overview, autism is a neuropsychological problem or condition that affects a person's ability to form a well-rounded development in their social interactions, which means it's a neuropsychological, it's a problem that affects how a person, how a person's brain functions, and then obviously presents with behavioral challenges, and how especially it particularly manifests or presents in social struggles with social interactions. So a person who is autistic will usually have challenges with their communication. They might be shy, they might have a restricted range of communication style and restricted social interests. So they might be demonstrating repetitive interests, sticking to certain things, tenaciously holding on to very restricted range of interests. Sometimes people with autism might actually have reduced intellectual abilities. Sometimes people with autism might have normal intellectual abilities, often high intellectual abilities, what we call high functioning autism spectrum disorder. So the fact that someone has a normal IQ intelligence quotient does not necessarily mean that they do not have autism, because autism is a spectrum that will typically present with struggles, difficulties with social development and social interaction, communication, and the range of social interaction. People with autism can also have troubles with regulating their emotions, so they can have emotional dysregulations. They might have troubles with anger management, and their range of emotional adaptability, being able to handle bad news, being able to have emotional flexibility and adaptation might not really be there. The question is, what causes autism? And that's why I'm making this video. Now, autism, there has not been a single factor or causation to autism that has been identified. What we know so far is that autism is multifactorial, which means so many things come together to interact to lead to autism or autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Now, genetics, which is simply genes inherited from parents, or how your genes begin to play. Some genes can interact with one another and manifest in different ways. So genetics has been shown to play a role, such that if a person has autism in the family, then there's a likelihood that one or two other persons in that family might be autistic or might develop autism spectrum disorder. That's where genetics comes in. There's also the place of environmental factors or environmental influences. And that is what brings us to the brain development. There's something called cerebral palsy, CP. Cerebral palsy, in simple terms, is an injury to a developing brain that leads to motor or movement disorders or motor problems. So if a child's brain, during pregnancy or when the child is born, gets injured, it can be from pressure on the brain. It can be due to loss of oxygen supply. If there's reduced blood flow, if there's troubles during labor or delivery, and the brain gets injured, that child might have troubles with movement disorder. They might have spasticity, very stiff limbs, very stiff body. They might have dyskinesia, so abnormal body movements. Sometimes they might also have intellectual problems when that injury to the brain also affects the part of the brain that is responsible for our intellect or our cognition. They might have troubles with their intelligence and learning. They might have learning disability or learning difficulties with cerebral palsy. Similar to cerebral palsy, it's been opined that autism might also be due to an injury to the developing brain of a baby or a child. And that is where this environmental influence is coming. Number one would be maternal infections. So especially I think cytomegalovirus, toxoplasmosis, and rubella, which previously used to be called German measles, rubella. These viral infections have been linked to an increased occurrence of autism in children. Now, maternal sadness, maternal sadness like peripartum depression or depression in pregnancy or depression around the time of labor and delivery, postpartum depression, perinatal peripartum during delivery and around that period of delivery. It's been opined or been suggested that could contribute to the occurrence of autism. Some studies have suggested that some antidepressants, the selective serotonin uptake inhibitor antidepressants, may be linked to the occurrence of autism. Some studies have refuted those claims, but some studies are saying that there might be a link between the SSRI antidepressants and autism. Exposure to certain pesticides or insecticides, especially the organophosphate pesticides, have also been suggested to contribute to the occurrence of autism. Some people have suspected, if you've been listening in social media, there has been a growing concern about vaccines. People are asking seriously whether vaccines could actually be leading to autism. In 1998, Dr. Andrew Wakefield published a study, an article, where he claimed that the MMR, the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, was linked to the occurrence of autism. Now, the MMR vaccine was developed in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Actually, it was first used, I think, in 1971 in the US. So the MMR is 3-in-1. It's the 3 vaccines, combined into one. So the measles vaccine, mumps, and rubella vaccines given as a single injection. That's the MMR vaccine. Was being speculated to be linked to autism. Now, if you look at when the MMR was first used, in the early 1970s, and when Dr. Wakefield published his study in 1998, you can find out that it was roughly about 25 to 30 years interval. So obviously the vaccine came out, and then there was a concern about an apparent increase in the occurrence of autism, and that was what led to that publication by Dr. Wakefield. However, many other studies were carried out that refuted that claim and came out to say there was no obvious or confirmed association between the MMR vaccine or any vaccine and autism. Mercury is used as one of the preservatives or one of the carrying agents in some vaccines, and mercury has been linked to autism. So that's one of the things that is also making people question whether certain vaccines may actually be truly safe. Remember, autism, the way many of us are beginning to understand it, is very likely caused by an injury or an insult to the developing brain of a baby, either during pregnancy, which is in utero, or when the baby has been born, usually within the first few days, first few weeks, first few months of life, when the brain cells are still actively and rapidly maturing and developing. Anything that causes an insult to that developing or maturing brain can lead to autism, or can lead to any other form of intellectual problems, or any other brain malfunction. Autism is a brain malfunction, and the question remains: what is leading to this brain malfunction in children or even adults? Because people who have autism in childhood will grow up to be autistic adults or autistic individuals. I would really like to know what your thoughts are. From your personal experience, from your interactions with people, if you have relatives who have autism spectrum, who are on the autism spectrum, what do you think? From your observations, because sometimes we do observational studies. So from your observation, what do you think could be responsible for this apparent increase in occurrence of autism? Something I have missed out, which is very important, is nutrition. There are wide claims that the increasing consumption of preserved foods, chemically preserved foods, and biologically modified foods, use of preservatives, pesticides to preserve foods. Some of those pesticides may not be properly washed off before the foods are cooked or consumed. And then foods that are biologically engineered, that are designed in the laboratory, that are not naturally grown fruits. People are speculating that the increased consumption of such foods might also be leading to an increased prevalence of autism, either during pregnancy, when the pregnant mother consumes such foods. There can be transplacental transfer of some of those chemicals through the placenta from the mother to the baby, and obviously the baby's brain is developing, or when the baby is born and obviously the children are consuming some of these chemically preserved foods or genetically modified foods. There are claims that could increase the risk or prevalence of autism. So I really want to know what your thoughts are with regards to autism. Do you believe autism is actually increasing? Or do you think we are seeing more of autism because we are becoming more aware of it and we're just making more of the diagnosis? What do you think? Do you think there are things in our environments that are increasing the risk of brain injury to babies, leading to autism? I really want to know, because this is a very important topic to we doctors, healthcare professionals, and everyone in society. We really want to find out what exactly is leading to this supposed rise in autism spectrum disorders. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more topics, on health-related issues. Thank you for watching till this point. Cheers. See you in the next one.